Good morning, Whitney. Good morning, Kelly.
Good morning.
How are you?
Good morning.
Oh, good morning, ladies. How are you?
Good morning.
Good.
Good. How are you?
So we've missed you. We've missed
It's been a while.
It's been a while, hasn't it?
Yes. So what all has been going on with you peeps?
Oh, Whitney, I'll let you go.
A lot. I'm trying to remember when the last time we came on. I guess it was when Amy and I spoke with you about some of the legislative stuff.
Yeah, I think so.
But that was a little while ago.
It has been.
Well, Kelly and I, we learned that we are true friends. We traveled together and dealt with the airport and public transportation together. So that was a lot of fun. We actually went to the Communities Over Highways conference in Minneapolis a little bit, about a month or so ago. And that was interesting. We got to see some different perspectives on similar issues to what we're having, and then some things that are, very different. One thing that stood out to me, though, was we ran into a friend of mine that I went to college with who was also a political science major, and he's he works in Boston now, I believe, and I don't know his exact role, but he was telling me, I was telling him the problems that we have in Oklahoma because we have a super majority Republican, legislative body. And
wait, what? We do?
Well, they pretend to be.
Okay. Well, let's. Okay. All right. Now I'm better. I can. Okay. Go ahead.
But he made a good point that they have the same problem where he's from, but it's on the Democrat side. So it's like whichever party has all the power, it's just a hotbed for laziness and complacency and corruption. And so that was pretty interesting. But yeah, it's been crazy. And then Kelly, if you want to tell them a little bit about some of the public meetings we've had lately.
Yeah, so we there's all kinds of information out there swirling with the Turnpike Authority, and people are always wondering, well, what's true and what's not. And we had, and also, I guess I should back up a little bit. So the Turnpike Authority, they have the South Extension shown on their map. And they've known since January of 2023 that the Bureau of Reclamation has told them they cannot actually put it there. They cannot build it there. So they're going to have to move it. Well, they're just now getting around to admitting that they're going to move it. So they have sort of made an announcement, and that kind of put a whole new swath of people in a potential path. And so all of these people that are now west of the current, what they're currently showing on the map, are wondering, am I in the path? Is my house going to be raised? And so we just kind of felt like our organization is there to support people and to try to help them understand what's going on. And, while we know some of them were following along this whole time, there are a lot of them that just had no clue and need to be brought up to speed. So we hosted a couple of meetings for the public to come and ask questions and try to get ahead of this and kind of ease their fears and let them know that we're working really hard to stop the whole project and that they have a lot of support. So it was really good. We had a huge turnout. The first one was at, do you remember the name of that school? It was, Lakeview Elementary School. And the place was packed. People were parking on the sides of the road, pretty far down. I'd say at least a quarter of a mile away, and walking to get there because the parking lot didn't hold enough of the vehicles, and the place was packed.
Well, but these people just didn't have anything better to do.
Like except they were try to save their house.
Night. I mean, I don't. Yeah. They probably. Well, the only reason I'm being a jerk about it is I really honestly feel like, because at the last meeting that I looked at that you guys, one of the last meetings where they actually had the OTA people come to, that guy really seriously, I don't even think his brain was in the room. I mean, people would say things and he was just not even addressing them at all. It was just like he was standing there and then going, off with your head. Off with your head, away with you. I mean, it was the craziest thing. They really don't seem to understand that if you do this unnecessary thing and take my house, it pisses me off.
So I have a little bit different perspective on that. I think they absolutely knew what they were doing, and that was intentional. I believe that they brought that gentleman who spoke and the other guy that also spoke. Those two people
What were
are
their
known.
names? Let's say their names.
So
Hashtag say their name.
DavidStreb is the I think he's the president of Poe And Associates, which is the consulting engineering group that is the program manager over the whole access program. And then Craig Moody is, for whatever reason, they have decided he's a good person to a good liaison with the public, so he gets to talk to the public, which I'm not really sure why, but anyway. So those two people.
Don't forget DavidStreb's role before becoming the president of Poe. He's a great example of that revolving door between agencies of the state and private businesses where he gets a golden parachute. Just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, so what she's saying is DavidStreb actually used to work for the Turnpike Authority before leaving, and I'm not sure how long ago that was. And I'm not sure
leaving
when.
and starting a private company that doesn't have to submit any.
Well, he didn't start the company, but he joined the company. So
a private company.
Yes, a private company. Yes.
That does all of OTA's work without having to submit to the process, a bidding process, right?
Well, they do have to submit to the bidding process, but there are definitely some questions as to, how competitive was that process before it was awarded the contract? But that's another story for another day. But so back to DavidStreb and Craig Moody, I believe the reason they brought those people there was because they knew that the public would react to them in the way that they did. They're not there to calm people. They're not there to reassure them. They are there to rile them up.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I believe.
Think about this, Jenny, and Kelly made a really great point, because at first we were like, how are they this out of touch? Like, you would think like they've got a PR person, like they've got to have someone smart enough in the room to say this is a bad idea. But then the day after that meeting, the Daily Oklahoman had a picture on the cover. And I don't think they did this to harm our cause. I think they just enjoy clickbait. But it was a very angry man yelling towards the OTA's people. And so if you're the public and you're seeing that person and you don't know the backstory and you don't know that he's actually a very nice man, a very intelligent man who I believe is a biologist, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
But if you don't know all of that, you just see someone being irate. And so you disassociate, and you don't want to be associated with those people because they're being crazy. That's what I think she's trying to get at, is it's all about optics. And if they can incite that anger and get people riled up, that's the reason they bring their own security.
It's to discredit the public. It feels as though it's to discredit the public. The people that are in the path is just a bunch of whiners and complainers. And not only that, but another piece that I kind of picked up on, and this is just my personal feelings, is that they brought all of these engineers and professionals to those public meetings, and they had them set up at tables, and the public was supposed to go and talk with these people. Well, DavidStreb and Craig Moody opened the meeting, of course, get everybody all riled up. And then the people go to the tables and they're already anxious and mad and angry. And so what do? They start yelling at the people at the tables going, we don't want this at all. And blah, blah, you're going to go over my house. Well, then when those engineers go back to do their work, all they think of, because the only time they've ever met any of us in person was at that table where we were yelling at them. And so are they going to feel bad about paving over our house? Are they going to try to avoid houses when all they think of when they get to the table and they're working on their projects is those people are mean. They brought their pitchforks. They were angry. Do I really care whether or not I pave over their house? Nope. Actually, I don't. So I think there was strategy there. maybe I'm wrong, but that's just kind of how it feels, because we actually did talk with some of them and told them, you shouldn't bring those people. No, they're not well received, and the public does not trust them. We don't believe them. DavidStreb stood up there at that Crosspoint Church back in March of 2022 and said a lot of things that were actually not 100% true, and we've found through open records that it's not. So why would you bring those people when you know that those are the people who are going to provoke this type of reaction from the public? He definitely wasn't placed in that position to calm any fears, which is what they said they were there to do. So anyhow.
And Jenni, I think it's fascinating that you brought that up just naturally like that, because we did not plan this conversation.
No.
But Kelly and I have talked about this so many times. Just that instance, and just like you said, it's like, oh, off with their head. There's no mirroring. And I just got finished with a book called The Indoctrinated Brain, and it talks about how, like, when you have groups with power, they lose their ability to have empathy, and it's like a acquired sociopathy where you can't even mirror people you're speaking to anymore because you have all the power. And it's just interesting because I think there's a strategic dynamic to this, but then I think there's also a power dynamic that they literally don't see the people that they're speaking to. And like Kelly was saying, if the people come at those tables with their pitchforks, that just makes it even harder for them to mirror those individuals and then think about them as human beings later.
Yeah, their empathy is gone.
It's so interesting that you say that, because earlier, I don't remember which conversation we had, and I was joking about the fact that Governor Stitt puts out this, he says, that was the best legislative session I've seen in 7 years, right? And we were laughing about that because it's like, okay, well, let's run over what happened. No good bills protecting liberty, very few, got passed. We had dead bills coming back to life. We had rules changes. We had suspending of the rules. All of these things that just the little people are looking at going, don't see it from your perspective, but he's like, oh, it was the best session ever, 7 years. So it is about perspective. I mean, to him, he got everything he wanted. So it was a great session for him. Fly on the little people. Yeah, I totally see that. I mean, that makes 100% sense.
Well, and then you also have to think too, I didn't hear this part because I arrived a little bit late. I had other things going earlier in the day. But from what I've been told and the comments that I've seen on Facebook is that apparently Mr. Streb actually said, please don't put on your comment cards that you don't want the turnpike because that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about, yeah. So that just feels very provoking. I mean, you've got these people who are concerned about losing their house, and they're there to tell the Turnpike Authority they don't want it at all. This is for supposedly a public meeting for feedback. And here the people are being told not to tell them that they don't want it. Why else would you make that statement? It's very provoking.
So I'm speechless. So we got me speechless already. That's not good. It's 17 minutes. This does not bode well. Literally, they went to a pub. Sorry, I'm just having so much trouble with this. Literally, they went to a public meeting and said, you can't tell me not to do what we're here to talk about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the purpose of the public meeting then was to make you guys look like a bunch of crazy people. So their engineers are like, that guy's crazy. I want to wipe out his house.
That's the way it turned out. And so
that's the way it feels.
That's the way it feels. So when you look at the outcome of the meeting and you look at what took place, and it's not like they didn't know that was going to happen because they had another one exactly like this a week before in Purcell. Yeah. And so when you bring the same people, and if you truly hope to get a different outcome, you would think you would change some things, but they didn't. Instead, the Norman meeting was even more ramped up than the meeting was in Purcell. So
So Gracie Colvin has a really, I mean, now I'm warning you, this particular comment is pretty common sense.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, why would you tell people that they're there to give you feedback if you're not going to accept all of their feedback? So
Well,
obviously,
this
I'm
is a
sure
pretty-
people still said we don't want the turnpike, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that goes, Catherine Ann's comment goes back to what we were talking about earlier. You know, what you had said, Whitney, about the, you know, the perception when you have all the power. You know, it's that old axiom about when you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail.
Yeah.
Right. And
I mean,
I like that she brought up the Stanford experiment, because it also makes me think of I think it was like the Milgram experiment, where the person with the power is telling these people who are pushing the button, just keep pushing it until they think that they're actually killing the person on the other side of the screen. But they do it anyways because the power authority is telling them to do it.
So Lisa has a good question. So when it's a scene setting declaration, right? Where he comes in and says, you know, and don't tell me, don't use your card to say blah. So did anybody stand up and say, but hold on, you know, no, we reject that idea. You know, this is a public forum. I mean, did anybody do that or what?
Yeah, so that's probably actually when that gentleman we were saying is the biologist, that's when he said, don't build it. And he shouted it. So I'm assuming that's when that was. That seems like a very logical reaction to someone telling you, don't tell us you don't want it. I think that another reason why I think that the reaction was provoked. I think they came there maybe not 100% with the intention to provoke the public, but you would think they would have taken lessons from the previous meeting from the week before and said, those comments weren't well received. Maybe we shouldn't say them again at the Norman meeting. And then they did. And so then
not to
you're
mention,
surprised that's the reaction.
Right. And like Kelly was saying with DavidStreb, there's been 3 years of him communicating poorly with the public, and to just keep throwing him out there, it just seems like it's going against common sense. I mean, even after the meeting that they had where it didn't go well, you would think they'd be like, hey, maybe we should pull like a woman into this, or some different personality that can be a little bit more soothing. But instead of
one of Sandra's donkeys.
Yeah. Obviously it's on purpose. It's like in my opinion, it's almost no different than like what the Nazis did with the dehumanization propaganda. You know, like what you said, Kelly, they're doing it on purpose to make people just think, you know, not have empathy for the people that it's going to happen to.
Yeah. And another thing too, to keep in mind is you have to think, so back in March, I think it was March the 3rd or something of 2022, it was 9 days after the announcement of the program, one of the was a Ward 5 council member at the time, held a town hall at the Crosspoint Church. And I'm sure everybody who knows anything about the Turnpike saga knows that meeting was a complete nightmare. And so you think about the people that the Turnpike Authority sent to represent them, and that was DavidStreb and Craig Moody, and then Sean Cavanaugh, he seems to be very nice. I have not had any issues with him. He's much more soft-spoken. He seems to actually have a little bit of a heart. And you could tell in his reactions and his body language and his behavior, even at the Crosspoint Church back in 2022, was very different than Craig Moody and DavidStreb's. But so you think about the Norman community, that was our first time to interact and to see DavidStreb and Craig Moody. And they were not nice then. They didn't 100% tell the truth about things. And so now when we see them, that's the first thing we associate with them, is that anger that we had back in 2022. And so of course, the minute you present them in Norman at a new meeting, just their presence gets people all riled up, because that's what we associate with them, is what happened at the Crosspoint Church. And so you would think by now they would realize those are not the people you need to bring. If you really want to find out what the public thinks, if you want to get genuine feedback, if you want to get us to interact with you, those aren't the guys to do it with. We don't want to talk to them. And we've told them that over and over again, and yet they still bring them, they still put them front and center. And if DavidStreb was a true leader, he would recognize the fact that he is not the right person for the job, and he would remove himself from that role and find someone who's more fit. But instead, he just continues to keep himself there. So I'm not sure if it's arrogance or if it is the engineer in him that just doesn't get it. But again, like Whitney said, they have PR people. We know that they were paying Jones PR to give them feedback on things like this. And so if you're not going to take their feedback, then why keep paying them? Is that part of the jobs program too?
Well, this is
intentional.
This is just me, okay? And this is just me teasing things out, okay? So if you have a job and your income depends upon this job, right? Then you're more than likely gonna fight for that job. Right? I mean, you're going to more than likely fight to keep that job if that job is bringing in money. We've said numerous times here, and I'm going to put it off on me. It is my personal belief that the OTA is little more than a jobs program, little more. It's just providing jobs for people's friends. That's what it is. And then sicking it to the taxpayer and private investors to foot the bill for that. And the reason why I say that is you've got turnpikes going to nowhere. You've got that crazy turnpike, 15 feet of turnpike that you have to pay $4 for in Jinx or Owasso or wherever that. I mean, just crazy crap. I mean, there's no way, because money and the love of money is the root of all. The love of money is the root of all evil. And if you've got a bunch of money, big pile of money sitting out there on the table, you're going to defend the table.
Yeah, of course. Of course. Yeah. Well, and then the jobs program too, this is sort of a good example. Last night, we were actually driving back from Dallas and we hit the construction on I-35 that's right there at the casino and like Highway 9, crossing the river. And leading up to the construction, they have all these light poles in the middle, between between the northbound and southbound lanes, but they weren't on. It was dark. It was completely dark outside, but the lights weren't on. And they actually had people out there working in the road. And I'm like, ODOT had to pay for those lights, right? But they weren't actually using them. So somebody made money off of selling those lights to ODOT, but they're not utilizing them for the safety of the drivers or the safety of their workers who were trying to work on the road right there. So what was the point? Why did ODOT spend the money to buy the lights if they're not going to use them?
Well, I've had that same question, though, about so many of the lights on OTA, on turnpikes, that I drive down and it's like night and I'm going, why is it dark here? And there are plenty of lights there. So I can't figure that out either. Hold on one second. So Valerie said, what's the point of trying to soothe people if they're going to wipe out their homes anyway, to make them feel better about losing everything? So I don't know. There is that side of it too. I mean, if they come in and go, oh, it's going to be okay, don't worry about it. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I don't know. They don't want to know what people think. They just want to make people look bad. I think that's what we've kind of all decided. The tactics used by the OTA, green energy, and all the other government-funded scams are too much alike. And I do think that that's true. It's all, and the reason I think why they're too much alike is because the bottom line is money. You're not going to stop me from putting up this windmill. I'm making money on it. You're not going to stop me from putting this, plowing over your house to put in this expanse of concrete because my firm's making money on it. That's what I think the bottom line here is.
I think you're right. And I think the sad part is that people who don't have empathy don't understand that money doesn't replace everything. You cannot replace community. You cannot replace your attachment that you may have. And I'm not even saying just to your house. I mean, there's attachment to land, there's attachment to wildlife, animals. You know, we've met a gentleman recently that's now in the path, and we visited with him at his home, and seeing how passionate and how much he loved where he was at. It wasn't just about the home itself, it was the deer and the turkeys and the treehouse that he built, and just things that you cannot compensate people for. But more than anything, you cannot replace community. And when you're going to wipe out neighborhoods of people who have been living in a vicinity together for so long, I don't care how much money you give them, they cannot go recreate that in reality.
Give the people what we can make money from, not what the people want or what's best from them. And I do, honestly, I'm sorry, but I just think that's the bottom line for everything, because you look at the Chamber of Commerce, and how many years have I fought the Chamber of Commerce over getting involved in meddling in education? Why do you want to meddle in education? Is it to make education better for kids? No, absolutely no way. The Chamber of Commerce meddles in education so they can train kids to step into the jobs at the businesses they're creating on our tax dollars through tax incentives to have in the state, right? So it doesn't have anything to do with kids. It has everything to do with how they're going to make money by the businesses that are coming in, and the kids are just ancillary. They just need little workers to go work there. So what difference does it make? So it is all about money all of the time. I really literally don't see where it isn't, especially when you're dealing with government.
I agree. And Michael, I have a question for you, because I know that you're, really into financial stuff. My perspective on all of this is that they are very not seeing past their noses with all this bond debt, because in what I've read and, in my business, there's a looming threat with how much debt we have as a country. So what do you see about the massive amounts of debt that the state takes on while still trying to act like we have such a great budget?
Yeah, that question, it's pretty much at the heart of everything. The debt situation is so out of control, but it's got a whole nother animal to it, where you have, it's only like that because we have the banking system that we have. They allow us to create debt like that. And that debt is, they're able to just keep siphoning it off, pushing it around over here, over there, over here, over there. But I'll just give an example, Whitney, of how I see it from what I saw when I was a golf pro. When I was a golf pro, I was a golf pro out of LaGuardia, and you had a massive amount of money, oil and gas money back. This is like 25, 30 years ago. You had a massive amount of oil and gas money just exploding. And you had all these guys that were out there flying in on helicopters, doing all this stuff, spending $25,000 in the pro shop, bringing their buddies out there. But it was all just a debt situation. They were so levered, they had so much debt. And then all of a sudden, the liquidity in the system just evaporated, just like that. The prices changed. There was an issue there, and then all of a sudden, all those guys were gone. That's exactly how I see all this exact same stuff with these bonds. Especially if you're writing bonds, you're getting bonds through at these higher rates, and then all of a sudden, if the rates go down, you're just instantly evaporating the value of those things. I don't know. I just think the whole thing is a ticking time bomb. I hate to go down that whole road, because I call Jenni every now and then, and I'm like in somewhat of panic mode. I'm just like, this can't keep going on. But I think part of it is there's so many people that have no financial IQ in any capacity, that we're never taught anything about how finances work. And because of that, no one questions anything like that. But you go into an office when you start questioning these guys, you see they don't even know they don't even know anything. But I do think it's a major problem, and we're going to see some major issues. But what happens? you get a state that gets in trouble, all of a sudden Fed money just comes pouring in one way or another. Or, you know, what I see happening is you're going to have these major private equity firms come in at some point and provide, you know, buy some of these bonds, buy a lot of these things, underwrite these things, and just kind of asset strip it the way that they've done to a lot of businesses over the last 20 years, 20, 30 years, like Toys R Us and some of those businesses like that, where you have private money that comes in, you know, with this type of situation. Then all of a sudden they just sell this part off here, do this, liquidate that, eliminate people here. That's what I see happening here, you know, in the next 10 years.
Well, it just seems like the responsible thing to do would be to try to pay off all the bonds so that we don't have the debt, and find a way to create more revenue for ODOT so that, you know, ODOT can take over and act as the state agency that they're, and do what they're supposed to do as our state agency in responsible for transportation. Instead, they keep taking out more and more bonds, and you can tell their goal is to never pay it off. And that's a problem because the state isn't, we don't own those roads. The bondholders do. And so if we ever do get into a situation where the Turnpike Authority collapses and they have all of this outstanding debt, the state doesn't get to take that over. It's now going to be controlled by the bondholders, and they can sell it. They can do whatever they want with it. And we could potentially have our toll roads be owned by some other country, or some other state or something. And I can't imagine that we would want that, especially when you look at Tulsa is nearly surrounded by toll roads. Can you imagine you're in the second largest city in the state, could potentially, their major roads could be owned by another country.
Well, this
well,
is a good bring in
well,
this comment. So John Boy says, a statement I made last time, what about the farmers and ranchers who have to drive miles to get to their lands after the OTA cuts them off? We're not paid mileage after that happens.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, to just dovetail on that comment, Kelly, what happens when you have a country like China because we've already seen them come in and take over large parts of businesses in this country, pick and choose whatever you want to talk about there. But what happens when they start just coming into the bond market in that way, specifically picking states out that have a massive amount of bond debt, and they go in and they make some kind of deal with whoever the bondholders are? They're going to give them liquidity. They're going to go ahead and buy the bonds out in a certain way, and then they're just going to carry it out and then do, exactly it's not that far. What you just said was not that far out of, in my opinion, the reach of what's probably going to happen here in the short future.
It's happened.
It just seems like
with a Spanish company called Cintas Zachary. So, it's completely possible, and it's happened.
Yeah. It just seems like the responsible thing to do would be to try to pay off debt. Like, that's how we run our family anyways. We try not to have debt. So it's just beyond my...
But you used a word that is anathema in government. Begins with an R.
Responsible? Yeah.
Just saying. We can say all of these things, but I don't think that's the purpose of government as we know it now, is to be responsible with anything, because we've let them get away for years with them being irresponsible. What makes them go, oh my gosh, I've got to be responsible with this money now? It doesn't. They're off the rails on the dang crazy train. Lisa says, any entity that makes decisions for us for our own good needs to be abolished. I 100% agree. I once heard an educator say that our job is to mold minds, which is exactly the point. I don't want my kids molded. Just as Jenni says, that's right. You can't run the state like a business. It happens too much, and it's easy to do when it's not your money. And that's 100% right. And China's not only getting land, they own like 80% of the pork industry in the United States, and people don't know about that either. So thanks for bringing that to our attention. It's true. So you guys had did you send me the PDF, or are you going to pull it up, Whitney? You had some stuff that you wanted to talk about. But before we do that, and don't let me lead you down a path. You can stop me. So was it a great I mean, we know Governor Stitt says best legislative session in 7 years. Was it that way for Pike off OTA?
I'm embarrassed of what this year turned out to be like. I think that if more people paid attention to what goes on up there, we would have a revolution tomorrow. But no one's paying attention. The media is complicit, and unless you're, suckling the teat of the money train, I don't see how you could look at this session and say that it was a success.
Kelly, any
we
thoughts?
must be we must be zeroing in on some things that are important, because we had a lot of pushback from the Turnpike Authority this year. We must have been making too much ground. They came in and actually tried to manipulate the bills that we had put forward, that were good bills that would protect the people, would protect the citizens who live next to turnpikes, would help compensate them for, changing their property forever. And of course, the Turnpike Authority had to come in and completely change things. And so we got a lot of pushback, which tells me we're heading in the right direction and we're pushing the right buttons. So,
well, and
I think, go ahead.
So, Lisa says modern government's nothing more than a badly spoiled child who's learned there are no consequences to their terrible actions. And that's exactly right. But John Boy says that you're right, Whitney. People just don't know. And I think, and Laurie said, because everyone is on the money train. I mean, I think that's part of the problem. I think she's called that spot on there. I mean, so we could go down that, but I wanted to go back to what you had said, Whitney. Part of the reason why you guys are on this program and you partner with Michael and me in this is because we all agree that the regular news media sucks. And the only way to get out the information that we're talking about right now is to get it out among us and then share. I mean, that's the only way, because the media is not covering this. The media is not.
In their defense, though, and I think you had a guest on recently, Jenni, that you guys talked about this, that it's not that I don't think they want to do a good job. They're not funded properly, and they don't have the staff. I mean, I can't remember exactly who it was that was speaking about this, but
I know. I remember what you're saying.
They don't have the money. And then something that you and I think Jason Murphy talked about recently was just how the conflicts of interest that go on with our legislature and the tendrils of nepotism and patronage and the incestuous nature of all of it, it's just so alarming. But I think, and this kind of segues into what we were just going to show everybody today, that's, maybe everybody already knows all of this, but we have the ability in modern time to use the internet for so many things that 10 years ago, 15 years ago, you would have had to go to a building, ask for a file, and it's just a lot more complicated when the technology isn't where it is now. And we do have that technology now. And not saying that we've found anything ground shaking, because obviously no one's in trouble yet, but there are ways to use our public databases and find information without even having to do an open records request, because the information's just there. And so that's kind of what we were hoping to just kind of run through before we get done with you today.
Just to kind of piggyback on that too, what I was thinking is that the media, I think that a lot of them are trying to do the right thing. Unfortunately, the Turnpike Authority, and I'm sure many other state agencies, well, maybe not any actually, the Turnpike Authority is the only one I can think of, but they advertise with the media. So the media has a really hard time not sharing things from the Turnpike Authority's perspective, because they don't want to lose that advertising revenue. So you're not going to get a fair assessment from the media a lot, well, at least from the news stations. Now, some of the newspaper reporters are trying to do a much better job. They're actually putting in lots of open records requests, and they contact us to get our side of the story. And I feel like they're trying to do a better job getting with better representation of all the factual information. However, just like we talked about with the Norman meeting from the OTA and how the media showed everybody yelling and screaming and all of this, well, you're not getting the full story there. And so with all of that being said, we would love to empower the people to pay attention and to do some of this research on their own so that they can actually find the answers and not rely on the media. Because we all know, I mean, we were all told, even when we were kids in elementary and junior high and high school, that the media is only going to give you what, maybe 10% of what the actual picture is. So it's our job as citizens to dig into things and find the answers for ourselves and make sure that what we're being told is correct. So that's what Whitney and I did today. We get a lot of questions about property acquisition and, you know, who owns that property, and we see it all the time on social media. Oh my gosh, there's all these rumors. Oh, so and so developer bought that land and they're going to put, you know, 500 houses there. Or I heard the Turnpike Authority bought them out. They've already sold. And of course, we do the research and go, well, no, neither one of those things are true. But it just gets people all stirred up, and there's so much hysteria around this sort of thing. And so we just kind of thought we would, you know, use some of this time to show people how to do this research on their own so they can go and fact check.
No, and I think that's great. But before we do that, I want to poke back at a couple of things. So, Laurie talked about the bill on energy that we talked about the other day. Hello, Southwest Ledger, owned by Hillary Communications. So I want to point that out. So you do have what we call some independent media. So you've got Frontier, you've got Oklahoma Voice, you've got Southwest Ledger. So let's start with Southwest Ledger, owned by the Hillary Company, who has, I think they said, somebody did some research one time and said something like they've given to 72% of all the elected officials Hillary has in the state of Oklahoma. So I don't see how any of that is going to work out to be unbiased media. Then you have Oklahoma Voice, which is paid for by, or it's supported by, oh gosh, I'm losing my name, but there are two of them in Tulsa that are very, very, very liberal, and they're the major donors to Oklahoma Voice. So let's say there's nothing that I see ever written in Oklahoma Voice about anything that's going to bump up against like privately supported daycare for young children or things like that, because they can't, because the people that they're, you know, that are supporting their magazine or their, you know, news aren't going to want them to go ahead and do that. So, you know, I think that's something that needs to be super, super clear here. I mean, we don't get paid by anybody, so we'll run after you and kick anybody's butt. I mean, we don't care.
And it's not without consequence, because not, you know, me
True.
personally, I haven't experienced this, but we have people on our team who have been threatened and who, you know, have been told that there's going to be legal challenges. And it's not that we do this because it's fun. Like my husband this morning was like, "What are you doing?" And I was kind of getting ready, and I think he thinks that I'm like, "Oh, spotlight, fun." I'm like, no, I feel implored to do this. I feel like it's my social and societal duty to try to spread truth and knowledge. And, you know, same thing with the whole Turnpike fight. Is it about saving one property? No, it's about having an accountable government that doesn't treat people like garbage.
Okay, so do you, and then Brandy says, technology's brought information we might never have had. And like I've said 100 times on this show, when I was teaching my kids, they had to put their cell phone down, right? But I would say, when I would give them a word and they'd go, "I don't even know what that word is." I'm like, I mean, there are great things, there are horrible things that phone can do, and there are great things that phone can do. And we, you know, we need to use, there are bad things about technology. And one of the things that's good about technology is doing what you guys do. And, you know, Michael and I, to an extent anymore, since we're mostly reporting and I'm not doing as much research as I used to do. We all need to figure that out. So where's the PDF so I can pull it up? Kelly, are you going to do it?
I could do it if you want.
Who has it?
While
I definitely have it, but
I just want to plug really quick. We had to reschedule our annual Royal Bavaria event because of weather threats, but also our new date. Am I frozen?
Yeah,
You're
now
you're
not. Go
unfrozen
ahead.
now. You're good.
Okay.
Go back.
So the new date is going to be June 22nd, right, Kelly?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, from 5 to 8 at Royal Bavaria, and anybody's welcome to come. I will tell you guys, this is one of the most fun events that we do all year, and this is the 4th one. But it's just going to be live music, good food, and community, gathering. So anybody is welcome to come to that. We would love to have you.
All right, hold on. I got it up. I'm getting it up in the comments. All right.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to leave that up until you change me out there, Kelly.
So, so then just walk me through this one more time, how I'm supposed to
Okay,
switch
go
it
down to
over.
the bottom where it says present or invite. Click
Mhm.
present. Pull in your PDF, and then it should work. Should being the operative word, because it is technology after all.
I'm pulling it in right now, so just give it just a minute.
All right. Well, and we hope that you'll be at the Liberty, Oklahoma convention talking about these things. So let's plug the Liberty, Oklahoma convention really fast in
That's
November.
in November. Yeah.
And while we're plugging Jenni, let's plug Jenni White's. Let's plug Jenni White's fight against the Oklahoma election board.
Oh yeah, we are
lost.
coming up with
We need
depositions.
Jenni's help. We
coming
need
up-
to help Jenni by donating to her election board. Give Send Go, or what is it?
It's Give Send Go. So if you go to rope2.org, you can find it on our front page.
There you go.
Right on our front page. Okay. All right, go.
All right, so I'll just start here, I guess. There's a lot of public records that are available online where you can dig into, or a lot of resources that the public can access online to verify information. And there's so many. We thought we would just start with land records, because that's something we get asked about a lot, is how do we know who's purchased what and how many properties have sold and that sort of thing. So let's just move on to the next slide. So land records, the easiest way for me anyways, to kind of find out who owns what, because we get that a lot. Maybe these are out of order. Yeah, we'll start here. Land records. This is what I gave this example a minute ago. We see these posts on social media all the time. I heard they sold to the OTA, or a developer bought that property. And if you want to get to the bottom of it and say, okay, did that actually happen? Well, then you can go over to the county assessor's website. Oh, my links aren't working, so I'll have to. Well, do you know if I can go online and present?
If you share one of your screens, then it'll just do whatever's on your screen.
Okay, let's do that then.
Oh, technology.
Share this window. Okay, can you?
I'm going to pull this out. Hold on. And then I'm going to put this in. That's all it says.
It says I'm sharing my entire screen, but I'm definitely not sharing my entire screen.
I know. I wonder why it's not working.
Are you on a Mac or PC? What are you on, Kelly?
I'm on a Mac.
Yeah, I don't know how well it works on Mac. Where do you want to go?
So if you will go to the Cleveland County Assessor's website.
I don't know why we can't get that.
I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up for you.
And you want to talk about rabbit hole digging, you can get lost in some of these property things.
Well, but that's a good reason why to show them how to do this, because I don't know how to do that. I mean, I can tell you how to find ethics reports, but I can't do that.
No, we didn't know these things either, 3 years ago. It's been a live and learn.
So from there, go ahead and just click on the assessor. Oh, wait, can you scroll down a little bit so I can see where we are here? Yeah, go ahead and click on assessor. Oh, it's already on the assessor's website. Okay, then scroll down a little bit, and we need to go to Okay, keep going. Go to property record card right there, the over on the right, the green one. Yep, go ahead and click on that. And then click OK. I understand. And then so here, you can type in an individual's name, or you can put in an address if you know the address of the property that you're wondering, was it sold, or whatever it is that you're looking for. But in this case, let's just start with Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. So just go ahead and type in just Turnpike. Let's do just Turnpike this time. And then hit OK. Search. And then if you go up there to on the top left, it says map.
See, I didn't
And now
even know
you
this
can
until just
see,
now.
yes, and now you can see where most of these are owned by the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. There is one, that top left box, the top left red thing on the map actually is something else. There's some entity, which is another rabbit hole that I went down one day, which is also very interesting, is actually owned by something. And you can scroll over here on the left, and it will tell you who actually owns those. But there's some entity that has the word Turnpike in it, and that's why that one showed up. But the other ones, see, there it is, Investera Turnpike. That's a rabbit hole, like I'm saying. It's go ahead and click on that. Click on that one that says Investera Turnpike. Okay. Something that's interesting that you can see here is that at the top in the center, it says Investera Turnpike LLC, 2205 West 136th Avenue. So the owner of this property is having their tax assessor bills sent to this address in Colorado, which that's obviously not where this parcel is located. So that tells us, one, obviously it's an entity because it's an LLC that owns it, but these people don't even live in Oklahoma, which I just think is kind of interesting. So you can kind of see who actually owns properties and get a little bit more information by where they have their bill sent.
And we're also assuming that everything on this website's correct, because I'm sure there's times where it's not completely up to date. So,
Yes. So the assessor's website, something people should understand about the assessor's website, is a great place to start if you don't know who owns the property, because you look at the map, you can click on the map if you just know kind of the general area of the property, but you're not sure what the actual physical address is. And so you can go there and click and you can get in. Michael, if you'll scroll down just a little bit, go down to where it says sales. And we're getting there. Oh, well, this one doesn't have it on. You back out of this one and we'll go to one of the other ones. Just click on one of the other ones.
Yeah, and Kelly, doesn't it take a while sometimes for sales to show up?
Sometimes on the assessor's website, and I assume it's because the tax assessor is probably only looking at properties once a year or once every couple of years to, adjust that tax rate. So they don't necessarily keep up with the sales as accurately. It's not as accurate on their website as it would be on the county clerk's page, but we'll get to that one in just a minute. So here under sales, you can see that on October 27th, 2022, this party sold to the Turnpike Authority. And one thing you'll notice, and we get this question a lot, is why is the sale price not listed for this transaction? And I don't know this to be 100% factual, but my assumption is that, see up there at the top where it says current market value is $247,000. Well, that price was based on what the tax assessor was assessing the property taxes for that property, which we know if you bought the property 30 years ago, it can only go up a certain percentage every year. So that price is not going to be 100% accurate with market value, right? Well, the Turnpike Authority is exempt from paying ad valorem taxes. So the assessor doesn't need to keep up with that price. That transaction price does not need to be in their inventory because they're not collecting tax from the Turnpike Authority, who actually now owns that property. So it actually does make sense for the assessor's office to include a $0 transaction there, because for their purposes, there's no tax going to be calculated on that sale. So
and let me just point out one thing really quick too. The point here is not to single out anybody who has sold or not sold.
Not at all.
Let's face it, people's situations are different, and you may need financial liquidity for any reason. So this is not about calling out individuals who have sold. It's just about showing people that there's a lot of information right at our fingertips that's public record.
Yes. And then we just went with the Turnpike Authority because we know that that's a question we get all the time is, well, how many people have actually sold? And because there are so many rumors about, oh, so-and-so sold a ton of acreage on, between 48th and 60th Avenue. Well, you can see from here that more than likely that's not true, but there is more investigation that we need to do to determine that for a fact, because as Whitney just said a minute ago, the assessor's website is not 100% up to date. They're notorious for lagging behind 1, maybe 2 years even sometimes. So how we can find out for sure is to go to the county clerk website. So if you would go back to Cleveland County's main page, you can just click there and then go to click the county clerk link at the bottom, in the bottom to the left. Yeah, that one right there. Not the court clerk, but the county clerk. And then we're going to scroll down a little bit. To the left, it's going to say login index search. Yep, click there. I accept. And we're going to go to official records web search. And here you can put in the name of, let's just search name web search, and let's go Oklahoma Turnpike Authority.
You want all that or just Turnpike again?
Go ahead and put in Oklahoma Turnpike Authority on this one. And if you're going to put in an individual's name, you're going to put the last name and then in a comma and then the first name. But when you're putting in an entity, you can just type out the whole thing. Oklahoma Turnpike Authority. And then hit search.
Extra down here.
And so now we're seeing any conveyance of property from one party to another property. Or from one party to another party. And so now you can see everything that has actually been filed with the clerk's office. And if it hasn't been filed with the clerk's office, even if they have signed a warranty deed, but they just haven't filed it, it's not actually official until it hits the clerk's office and they have recorded it. So all of these rumors about, oh, so-and-so sold 180 acres or whatever, it's probably not true because we're not seeing it here. Does that mean that they haven't worked out an agreement? Maybe they have. Maybe they have verbal agreements. I'm not sure. But this is how you can go and find out 100% for sure if a property has changed hands. And so another way, if you go back to the assessor's page and then click on any of those properties.
Oh.
That's okay. Sorry. One thing I did want to show everybody here. So if you go down to the sales, oh yeah, this is a good one because there's more here. And you can see, this is what I was talking about before, that usually when one party sells to another, it will have the transaction fee right there. That's what they're going to base your taxes off of, whatever you paid for it. And then we see to the Turnpike Authority, it was a $0. But take note when you come here on the assessor's website, this is a good starting place to find out which owner you're going to search over on the clerk's website. But take note of the deed book page and the deed page. And you want to write those down. I usually write those down. So 64181 is the deed book, and then page 86. And so then when you go back over to, let me write it actually so I don't forget it. And we'll just look this one up. So 6481 and 86. So then go back to the clerk's page. And then if you will go back one, and then it says search, the second option is book page or document number web search. So go ahead and click on that. And you're actually on this one, you're going to put it under the volume. I know it says book, but really the volume is the book. So you're going to put in 6481.
Did you just teach yourself this?
Yeah, pretty much.
Dang.
And then on the page, you're going to 86, page 86, and then hit search.
And I know I just said that, but I want to emphasize this because my family from the very beginning, if OTA would have offered them money to sell their property, they would have done it because they've been trying to sell their property anyways. So we are not trying to attack any individuals.
No,
People's
not at
lives are
all.
different, and there's reasons to sell. It's just this information's out there for anybody who wants to see it.
Right. And so I know there are a lot of people in our organization that encourage people not to sell. I'm one of them. I don't think people should sell. But I do want everybody to know that we completely understand, or at least myself personally understand, that everybody is and they have their own unique circumstances. And if a family needs to sell, then sell. I will support you no matter what it is. I support you in doing what's right for your family, regardless of whether, if it's going to look different for everyone. So I hope that people don't feel like after they sell, if they sell, that that we've abandoned them, that we're not still representing them or supporting them, because that's definitely not the case. I will support any landowner. I hate the fact that they ever had to deal with it in the first place. But anyway, okay, so now we can look at this warranty deed and we can see a lot of information here. So go over, see, now that you've kind of got it highlighted, over in the right-hand corner, hover over his name. Oh yeah, okay. And then over in the right-hand corner now you can see a printer. Click on that middle thing, and that's gonna let you view that warranty deed. And so now you can see that Joshua Tucker and this Miss Tucker here, I guess, husband and wife, have sold to the Turnpike Authority. And it's always going to say $0 there, because that's just what it's going to say. $10. Almost every warranty deed says $10. I'm not sure why. There has to be some dollar amount attached to it, but they don't actually have to say how much it was. And that's on everything, whether I sold a property to Whitney or the Turnpike Authority buys a property from an individual. That's just how it works. They all say that. But one thing that is interesting here is if you look over in the right-hand corner, it says the tax ID number, it says the project number, East-West Connector 20005. So that was the segment in which this parcel was located on the Turnpike Authority's project. And what I've noticed is, and it also says the parcel number. So those are numbers that the Turnpike Authority has attached to identify this parcel with their project. And that becomes important later on when you're trying to look at surplus properties. You can go, oh, that property was blah, 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 whatever. That's kind of getting into the weeds though, so I'll stop there.
Okay. John Boy says this, $10 is the new legal minimum amount that can be listed.
There you go.
That's why.
There you have it.
And
It used to be $1, I think.
Harold says the low dollar amount is to reflect for taxes. Never tell them how much you pay.
That makes sense.
Well, there you go. So go ahead and on this page, go ahead and scroll down on that document to the signature. Okay, right there. So it says, so anytime on the warranty deeds, when you're looking at one party conveys property to another party, the person selling the property is the one who's going to sign the warranty deed. And so when you're looking at a property that's sold from an entity, so an LLC, an Inc., or a business, and you're wondering, well, who's behind that business? This is how you can find out. You look down here on a warranty deed and you go, oh, because their representative has to sign that. Now, sometimes the registered agent is, an attorney, or it's someone acting on their behalf. So this is not foolproof. You can't always figure out who an entity belongs to. But if you're ever looking at an entity and you're like, well, who is that? Land may not be in the equation at all. But if you can go to the clerk's website, plug in the entity name, find an instance where that entity conveyed property to another party, open the warranty deed and look and see who signed it. Because a lot of times it will be the president of the company has to be the one to sign that. And so that kind of gives you an insight of, oh, that's who that is. So that's one way you can identify an entity. Okay, let's go.
One quick thing. So Dorn says, when exploring new websites like this, I try to pull down or click on every optional click possible.
Mm-hmm. Actually, what we just talked about was a good segue into the next. What the other part I was going to talk about was the Oklahoma Secretary of State. So if you're looking at the warranty deed and you still can't find out who these people are, and you're trying to figure out an entity that maybe bought a property or something, and you're like, well, who is that? And you can go to the Oklahoma Secretary of State's website.
Oh, and John, I missed this comment. John said there's a law passed a few years ago where the monies are no longer put on the county's information, but a realtor has the ability to find that if he's not mistaken. So I guess they took that off well, gosh, we don't want transparency anywhere.
It should eventually show up on the assessor's website. It just might take a while to get there. Okay, so from here, go to search for a registered business. And then,
type in reclaim Oklahoma parent empowerment. I'm just saying we're a registered business. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. Go for it. Okay, and so there it has. Now you can see their filing number with the state of Oklahoma, and
Yeah, but the thing I don't like about the website, this website, is that you literally have to pay to find our filing documents. I mean, there's nothing that you need to. I mean, you can see that I'm the registered agent in Luther.
Go ahead and click on that number. Yeah, go ahead and click on that number, because you can actually, so you don't have to have a paid account. You can just have an account. So you would have to put in your personal name and information to get past the screen to see the next part. But I wish you could get through there.
I know what you're saying, though, Jenny, because I have paid before to get certain documents.
Yes,
I don't remember
true.
which ones they were, but
yeah,
you do have to pay on some of
You
it.
can get the basic filing documents, but if you want to find out like what our agendas are, or if we filed agendas, or if we filed, anything else, so you can make it that bigger, and you can see. So down at the bottom, if you make it bigger, Michael, look what it says. So scroll down. You can say it's no. Go back up. See
where
right
it says,
there, it says view
entity detail.
So click on view entity detail.
That's where
you'd have to check out. You'd have to pay $5 to.
Exactly. So that's all I'm saying, is that, I mean, I don't know why. How come you have to do that? Because you might as well. You could always just email me if you want my documents. Don't pay them, $5 to have to get.
Because a lot of these entities don't want that. They don't want that information to actually be public. But the good thing about it is that you can access it online. And yes, there is a fee associated with it, but at least you don't have to go to the the Secretary of State's office and do something in writing. You can do it right here. But so one thing, when you expand it and you're looking at this page right here, you can see, okay, well, so they started this entity in April of 2022, and that kind of gives you a little bit of background on, okay, well, did they throw together an LLC just to buy this property? Because sometimes it'll be the same day or a week prior to when they'll have created an entity, like a week prior to signing the documents. And that kind of gives you some red flags. Or was it like a 30-year-old entity? Well, they've been using this one for a really long time. And then another interesting thing too is the registered agent information down here. So it has a lot of times this will have changed, and it'll say, so like this one, yours is the same, April 4th of 2022. So when you registered this, you were the registered agent, and you still are. But another red flag, in my opinion, is when you see the original date where they established the entity, and then they've changed their registered agent recently, right before they did something. Like, well, that's just weird. What's going on there? Why are you now taking it out of your name and putting it into somebody else's name to act on your behalf?
But I can actually speak on that, because I've had to do that with my own business. And the reason was, whenever the documents for organizing the business were established, I had used a CPA, and then she ended up kind of falling off the radar because she lost some family members. And so I wasn't getting my mail that I should have been getting. It was getting mailed to her. So there are legitimate reasons to change that agent that can be totally,
No, that's fair enough.
Yes, for sure. And so, but that makes sense though in your case, because you were then putting it back in your name out of somebody else's name. But when you see that somebody originally registered it in their name and they changed it to somebody else's name, okay, well, why? Why are they deflecting? What are they trying to hide? Why are they trying so hard? And that's another red flag for me, is when I'm looking at an entity that has bought property, if they have taken multiple steps to hide their identity, especially right before they bought it, it makes you go, what's up with that? But there could be legitimate reasons behind all of it. And a lot of times too, if you click on that entity detail and you're going to try to order the documents, you can see you can see just how many changes that entity has gone through. Like how many times did they reorganize and that kind of thing. So that's kind of fun to look at. I think, let me look and see what other slides we
You
have
probably
here,
don't want to
but-
keep my address up there, but that's okay. I do have
Well,
large dogs.
Yeah, you can
and a
take that
cat,
off.
So good luck getting in here, but just
Well,
saying.
Just
And then
as
the-
another example that I'll just give you because I personally have one of these. In Oklahoma, the registered agent can be another entity itself.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be a person that you identify. So I actually have a New Mexico LLC, which in New Mexico, if you have an LLC, you can be the sole member and they don't publish your name. Where in Oklahoma, if you have an LLC, they publish your name, as the registered agent or whatever. But in Oklahoma, in New Mexico, they don't. So I have a New Mexico LLC that actually owns an LLC in Oklahoma. So my name is not tied in any capacity unless you get an actual charging order from the court in New Mexico to specifically go look for me, when that kind of. So I'm just saying those situations exist in the registration process because I have one myself.
Yeah.
And they
Maybe
can
we
be
should
totally
find out why
online.
you have one, Michael. Since
Yeah,
that's
in order to have certain assets in there that I don't want, general public knowledge tied to my name with assets.
Yes. And sometimes
Well,
there's
and there's
legitimate
big-
reasons for that.
Yeah, and there
It's just
should
a layer of liability protection for me.
Sure.
Yeah,
So, Michael, can you pull that Secretary of State page back up, though? I want to show people one more thing while we're on this topic.
and we have to remember in America we do
wanna
have
go
a Fifth
to the
Amendment,
homepage,
and we
or-
do have
Just
privacy.
back up.
We have a reasonable expectation to have privacy in our papers.
Yes, we do. So back out just one. We're going to go back to the search page. Actually, you might go back to, click on advanced search. And then erase where it says Oklahoma, reclaim Oklahoma. I don't know if it's going to let us do this or not, but then scroll down just a little bit. We can't quite see it yet, where it says registered agent, but then it also says search by name of person. And so if you suspect someone is, and you're trying to find, what LLCs they have registered, how many businesses do they have, that sort of thing, you can put in someone's name here. And even if they're not the registered agent, but if they are a board member, or if they have been associated with this property or any property they've ever had their name registered to, is going to show up if you go on this one. So I don't know, just put in Mike.
Put in
Smith.
that evil Jenny White. It'll come up.
Well,
There you go.
but that's a good point. It's not about being good or bad. That's not our point. We don't research things to find who the evil players are. It's just about having knowledge. It's about knowledge is power, and it's at your fingertips.
So don't buy into all the hype when people say, oh, so-and-so sold, or blah, 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 blah.
Yeah,
or I heard so-and-so is associated with such and such entity. Well, now you can go and verify that for yourself. And, maybe it's true or maybe it's not. But this is another way that you can find out who owns what. Because I know there's a lot of layers involved sometimes with the property acquisition.
Well, and
we don't
Melissa,
have
I
time.
just saw Melissa Remington's on this morning, and Melissa and I mean, she can speak to this as well too. I mean, one of the things that when you go out to look at the Secretary of State's office, one of the things you're trying to do, at least for me, has been looking at people with ethics reports. So, I mean, if we want to have a transparent process in our Oklahoma ethics, which have to do with campaign financing, one of the ways that you can chase some of that down is by going onto the Secretary of State's website and looking up individuals or companies that are associated with PACs. So that's how I use that. And I bet that's how Melissa uses it too.
I thought we'd just end on the Secretary of State because I think we should do another one of these, and we should talk about what you were just talking about with campaign finances. Yes. And teach people how to use the Guardian website and that sort of thing.
No, you need to come to the convention in November.
Yeah.
And we'll teach you.
Well, they're going to do that too. But that was a real quick and dirty overview of, how you can find out who owns a property and whether or not it's actually sold. because we get those questions all the time. And as you can see, the Turnpike Authority hasn't actually bought a lot of properties in Cleveland County. So there are some over in McLean County.
Well, I'm assuming, Kelly, do all the counties have an online assessor and clerk now, or is there still counties that don't? And they probably all operate kind of around the same way, I would assume.
Yes, a lot of them are very similar. So every county is going to have their assessor stuff. Most of them are online, especially kind of here in the central part of the state. Now McLean County and Lincoln County and in Pottawatomie County and a lot of counties actually across the state, and the smaller ones you can't actually access the warranty deeds. You have to go to I think it's okcounty.com, and it is a paid website.
Oh, that's right.
And so you do have to pay, like you can look at like 10 a month or something for $10, I think is what it's, something like that. But you can still find out a little bit of information for free. We could cover that in another day. It's a little bit more complicated and in depth, but it's there if you need it. And like I said, this is minimal charge. So, but it's a third party.
Okay, so Lori has a question for you. She said, what's the app? Hunters use this too. How accurate or up to date is that for ownership? So do you know of an app?
There are several. Michael, do you know what it's called?
Lori says, yes, let's do a class. Lori, November 13th through the 15th at O'Connor Resort. We're accepting sponsorships right now.
As far as the apps are concerned, I don't know how up to date they are. I would always verify. And now you know how. I would always
Michael,
verify and make sure.
Are you looking up the app to see?
Yeah, well, there's multiple, but I think ultimately those apps have to just pull from public information anyway.
Right.
You know, they aggregate there. So I don't know if they're more up to date or not. I can't find it just off. I thought I could find it quickly, but I can't, because I used to have it on my phone, but it's not on there now.
I can give you an example that we use for Medicare. There's something, it's called a T65 locator. And essentially you pay a fee each month and you're able to zero in on a geographical area, and it'll give you either, dots where they're located, or it'll give you a list, and all of a sudden you know who is turning 65. And it's just public information, like Michael was saying. I know, isn't it nasty?
Why do you know that information, Whitney?
Something else that's really interesting, if we have a few minutes, I think this is fascinating. But Michael, can you pull up a website again and go to the Oklahoma County clerk, or actually maybe the assessor? Go Oklahoma County assessor. Oklahoma County is pretty cool. Theirs is a little bit different, and they have this map search that I think is just, it's a lot of fun.
Oh, it is good.
I might need a new hobby.
Yeah. And you can use that same thing. Like there's a piece of property not very far from me that I covet. And I'm using that word, covet. I love the property. And I'm like, I wonder if there's any way I could afford to buy it. So I'm like, I use this tool to see who owned it so that I can.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Michael, go to map search. Go ahead, Jenni. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that was good. That's all I was saying.
At the top, in the top menu bar, just go to map search. Click on the little tab. Yep. So this is the GIS mapping system. And I think over on the right, there might be like a layers panel that's hidden that I can't see. Okay. Look down here at the bottom. See where it says 2024 deed filings? Click on that. Turn that on.
Oh, wow.
Mm.
Oh, wow.
And now look at this. You can see every property that changed hands in Oklahoma County in 2024.
Wow.
And so this is interesting to me. Like if you'll turn this one off, we'll just take it back to Turnpike. We'll relate it back. So turn 2024 off and scroll down and click on like the 2018 ones or 2017. And then go over to the Kickapoo. Turnpike.
Just put, yeah, there you go.
Like, yeah, they were almost in view, but not quite. There, now you can see a little bit of it.
Yeah, but
We
he's
might
just
need to
got
turn on the
over
20.
and that's in some
Yeah,
of
well, I
it's.
would. Well,
Oh
no,
no,
most
there
of
it
it I
is.
think was.
You got it.
So
Yeah.
you might want to turn on the 2017 layer in 2018, but or
Turn them
turn on
both
both of
on.
them. But then you can just see, yeah, turn them both on, and then look at that. Now you can see all the properties. Now
Yeah.
before, because it only goes back, they only have those deed filing options for just a couple of years, because like 2 years ago I could turn on 2015 and 2016, and that was interesting because we had a lot of questions about, oh, did somebody buy a property like ahead of the turnpike to see, were they speculating that it was going to be there, did they have inside knowledge? And you could click, and actually, yeah, there were quite a few large parcels that sold just a year or two before the turnpike was announced. So I just think this is a really neat feature. I haven't seen this on Cleveland County's assessor page, obviously doesn't have this, and I haven't seen it anywhere else. But Oklahoma County, you guys have a really neat feature here. So
Yeah, I agree.
kind of gives
Oklahoma
you,
County is really good for that. I agree.
you kind of click on things and go, oh, this seems to be a hot spot. What's getting ready to happen over here? What's going to pop up
Yeah.
over here? We've got a lot of people buying stuff here or something. So anyway.
Yeah, and I look at, and I'm sure John Boy and some other ones who were on here this morning are looking at all of those things in eastern Oklahoma County, because we have, excuse me, windmills and, and I mean, you got a quarter section right there.
Mhm.
And that's pretty
Yeah,
large.
see,
That's a
that's
pretty, yeah. I mean, and so that's part of the way that the no wind turbines groups have been finding, out where like NextEra, for example, is coming in and buying things. So
yep. Well, there you have it. So I guess we would just like to encourage people to stay informed. You have these tools at your fingertips. You can get so much information, before you buy into the hysteria that you see on social media. Just take a look at it for yourself. And then knowledge is power. When you know how to look something up, and it takes some of the fear and anxiety out of it. So
I'm also going to add it to it. It can pull the rug out from under their feet too, because when you go into a situation and you're well versed, and I'll give you a really good example. So here in Luther, our mayor had said that at one of the meetings, he brought in a group to talk about possibly putting in a data center, right? So Sandra Trawick and I are, looking, see if we can find out what the land is around, and you can do that really easily and find out. So we found out that CLO, the Commission of the Land Office, owns a big chunk of land right around our big Redbud power plant. And CLO land is great because if you want to get something done, you just go to the Commission of the Land Office, where you have the governor who sits on that board along with the other cabinet members, and the governor's the one, yes, we want business. Yes, we want business. So if they come in, they're going, please, may we please have some CLO land to build a data center on, then, the governor's going to be all behind that. Hey, we get rental on that. So it's great to be able to use these things to find out in advance where the possibility is that they're going to put something, or, something like that. This really is invaluable information, because you're right. Knowledge is power. And if you're informed and they know that you're informed, it's scarier for them, because they love to do things to people who aren't informed, right? Uninformed people are easily led people. Don't be one of them.
yeah, don't be one of them. Definitely don't be one of them. There's so many resources out there that you can double check yourself. So
okay, well, before we get off of here, because there's one thing that I want to hit a couple of things before we wind down for today. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions to close this out. So let's go back and do the fundraiser. So you have a big fundraiser that's coming up. Here it is. I'm putting it back up there. So June 22nd, 5 p.m. to 8 p.m., sponsored by Pike Off OTA at Royal Bavaria. That's a fundraiser for you guys. So please make sure that you're there. Where are you in moving forward at this point? Can you talk about any of that?
We can't really talk about some of the legal tactics, but I can just highlight the fact that Gentner Drummond made a comment recently. I think it was a Facebook post or a tweet or something.
Yeah.
Basically just reinforcing that there is still an outstanding investigative audit, and according to what I remember him saying, I'm just going from memory, it seems like he still plans on holding the OTA accountable to the results of that audit.
Well, here you go with the snark for this morning. That would be one of the few things he's done then. Just saying. So I guess I'll believe that when I see that. So what else? So yes, there's that. What else? Anything else that you can talk about? I mean, we're not going to give this up, right? I mean, we've got to make the OT.
So Drummond's thing says, he posted this last week. It said, after hearing from many Oklahomans, one of my first actions as Attorney General was to request a comprehensive investigative audit of the Oklahoma Turnpike Authority in March of 2023. As of now, the state auditor's office is still reviewing this, but we need action. As governor, I'll ensure full OTA accountability to the public. So that's part of the update, is that it's still, according to the Attorney General, the state auditor is still working on it, and which we know that to be true. There's and people are always asking us, are they ever going to do anything? Are they ever going to finish their report? Well, yeah, it's been 2 years, but this agency has been running amok and doing things wrong for how many decades now? There's a lot of information for them to sift through and things to uncover. And let's face it, if they just whipped out the report in 6 months, they're not going to catch it all. And more than likely, people are going to go scot-free that should, things that need to be addressed are not going to be addressed. So at least they're being thorough.
Well, and I want to dovetail on what you just said. Don't forget, the auditor's office is kind of like the ethics commission. They're notoriously underfunded because those are two big accountability agencies in the state. And Cindy will tell you, they're very underfunded. So they can get some basic audits done, because don't forget, the auditor's office is statutorily required to do so many audits, like cities and towns and that kind of thing in a year. They have to do that. So when somebody comes along and says, we need you to do a forensic audit on this, or we need you to do a full audit on this, that's just extra stuff that they don't get extra money to do. So we have to really get that out there, because I know there was a lot of frustration, for example, on the Tulsa Public Schools audit. Well, you can't make things happen when you don't have the budget to make them happen.
Right.
You know what I mean? And don't forget, the other thing that's a real frustration for us, we've had Cindy, the last time Cindy was on the program, you remember, Michael, what she said?
They can do the report, but it's up to the Attorney General to do something with the results.
Yeah.
It's exactly what she said. And she said, and not only that, she said, and guess what? There aren't any real laws on the books to make these people do anything.
Yeah, there's no teeth. There's no consequences in place for them breaking the law. So
who then is the consequences? Who then provides the consequences? We do. We can only be the ones. That means showing up at OTA meetings and expressing our displeasure. That means showing up at CLO meetings, expressing our displeasure. That means, taking an active role in the government, because the government is made up of who? We, the people, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's the first line? We, the people, right? We, the people, elect people, but we, the people, don't elect bureaucrats. The people we elect, appoint bureaucrats. So we have to be responsible to those people somehow, or for those people, or make them responsible to us. So, we've got to remember, it is we, the people. We have the power. We just have to use the power. John Boy says, the way the governor and the board members of the CLO lands are doing just as they want, they're going to take land away from the wrong person one of these days. Then it's going to cost the taxpayer big bucks. There are rules and regulations of what you can and cannot do. And that is true. CLO does have very specific rules and regulations. You're right about that. Gracie tells you guys to keep up the good fight. Warrior women. I added that. Warrior women. All right, ladies. Thank you for being with us. And thank you, literally, I mean, thank you for doing this, because at this point, we don't need no more stinking turnpikes.
Yep.
Ain't nobody need no more stinking turnpikes. What we need is we need our property. We need our land. We don't need to be forced off the places where we live, the places where we put our blood, sweat, and tears, the places where we brought up our kids, the places where our parents brought us up. It's nobody's right to take these things from us for an expanse of concrete that is completely and totally unnecessary, other than to provide jobs for companies that do it.
And economic development. They're pushing it for economic development too. So,
well, you know how I feel about the words economic development.
Like the Soviets with progress.
A little something like that. A little something like that.
we should probably end on that one.
Well, but don't you forget, Tassie came on the show and talked about how she felt like the OTA was basically just a Soviet era arm of the government. I mean, and she had specific reasonings. If you want to look that up, go to our YouTube channel, go to our Rumble channel, and look up our interview with Tassie, because she did a really great job explaining, kind of the purpose that OTA fills here in Oklahoma. It was a really great interview.
Yeah,
and
she's not wrong.
John Boy makes the point. They won't even fix or repair the turnpikes they have now. There you go. All right, ladies, thank you so much for being with us. And we will have you on again soon. So stay tuned. And then, anytime there's something going on, do not hesitate to reach out.
For sure.
Thank you.
Thanks,
All right,
Jenni.
ladies.
Thanks, Michael.
Miss you. Thank
Bye.
you.
Ladies.
Bye.